Have you ever said anything out of anger and immediately regretted it? I shouldn't have said that thing. Have you ever done anything out of anger or frustration and immediately regretted it? Oh, I should not have done that thing. Have you ever been somewhere, you got to where you were going, and you're like, ugh, I shouldn't be here? You guys ever felt any of those things before? Have you ever noticed that there's a big difference between a 10-year-old and a 17-year-old? Just demeanor, attitude, how usually what are 10-year-olds? They're more what? They're more hyper, they're more active, they're more bouncing around, right? Compare that to a 17-year-old, they're usually what? They're more chill, they're more calm. Can a 17-year-old get hyper? Of course. Can a 41-year-old get hyper? Yes, we do. It happens. But it looks different. It looks different. What I want to share with you today is why that happens. What's going on, even biologically, in our brains, why there's a difference between a 10 or 11-year-old and a 17-year-old, and what happens when we say or do those things that we immediately regret. That's what I want to talk to you about today. I got to adjust this a little bit. There we go. Our brains develop, I'm going to draw you a picture here, see how good I can do this. Our brains develop, what is that?
Wow, a brain?
Our brains develop, so what is this? It's a brain, oh, it's a brain, very good. Our brains develop from the back bottom through the middle to the front top. That's how our brains develop, okay? Back here, this is the part of your brain that is the basic functions of being a human. Think about like a baby trying to learn how to walk. You know, they're kind of like trying to balance and they're going from one thing to, who's got like babies or really young kids in your home right now? I know a few of you do. And they learn how to walk, right? They're like wobbling and kind of going around. There's a young baby here that was in your family, Thomas. Was it Friday? Yeah. You know, she actually forgot one of her little things to her carrier. It's in the office. Okay. Okay, you gotta bring it home. Okay, good. So think about a baby. These are your basic functions. These are like when you're trying to balance. This is what says, I'm hungry. This is what says, I'm cold. This is what says, I'm hurting right now. Just the basic things. You don't talk from that area of your brain. You don't do math equations from that part of your brain. These are just your basic functions. In the middle, right here, is a part of your brain, I might misspell this. I think I spelled it right. That's called your amygdala. Does anyone know what happens in your amygdala, or what comes from your amygdala? Your emotions, very good. That's where your emotions come from. So these are basic functions, right? These are where your emotions come from. And this is called your prefrontal cortex. What comes from there? Does anyone know? Isaiah?
That's like your logical thinking.
Correct.
But also, that one in the back, isn't that the Abdullah oblongata?
The Abdullah oblongata. I didn't want to spell it. Your prefrontal cortex, this is where logic and reasoning come from. Okay? Why does that matter? Who cares? Why does this matter that our brains develop from the back bottom through the amygdala into the prefrontal cortex where your logic comes from? Who cares? Why does that matter? Can anyone tell me? Or behavior. Why does that matter for you guys right now? It actually matters less for me. I'm locked in. You guys aren't yet. Isaiah, what do you think?
Because since our brains are still developing, we can.
Okay, wait. Say that one more time. Your what?
Our brains are still developing.
Your brains are still developing.
And our emotions aren't like really regulated yet. We don't think from our frontal cortex as much.
We can just dismiss class right now. That's really all you need to know. I'm teasing. But you're right, you're absolutely right. Right now, if your brain is developing on this angle, does anyone know about what age a man's brain is fully developed? You know, Jackson? Late 20s, that's a girl. Late 20s. 27, 28, 29 for guys. Girls are like 24, 25, 26.
How come they mature faster?
I don't know, that's just how they're made. That's just how we're made. I'm not really sure. So for guys, we put men, 20, we'll say 26-ish to 29, that's when your brain will be biologically, physically, fully developed. Obviously, you guys are not there yet. You were born too late to be there, okay? You're not there yet. You guys are ages what? Junior, you're the youngest, right? How old are you? You're 12? You're 12? And Elijah, you're the oldest, correct? You're 17? Is anyone else 17? You're 17, Isaiah. When was your birthday?
I'm turning 18 in a month.
In 1 month? Okay, so you're the oldest, and then you turn 18 in March, correct? Okay. So 12 to 17. So what that means is you guys are somewhere probably around here. So it's developing this way. Which part of your brain is more developed right now? Your prefrontal cortex or your amygdala?
Your amygdala.
So it's more developed. So what does that mean when you guys face a situation, when you face a decision, when someone's giving you a hard time? What does that mean biologically you're going to do in your brain? You're going to lean where?
Towards your emotions.
Towards your emotions. That's why before this age, that's why guys, when they're 15, 16, 18, 22 years old, and they're faced with something, the first thing you're going to react from is your amygdala or your emotional part. It doesn't mean you can't think logically. It just means you're going to lean towards your emotions. Why do you think we tell you guys over and over and over to practice your what skills when you get angry? So with the C, coping.
Skills.
What are we trying to get you to do with coping skills? What does that do?
Train us to not use our emotions to think.
Who remembers the teeter-totter? Logan was a teeter-totter.
One half is when you're doing good, half is when you're not doing good and stuff.
Well, not quite doing good or bad. So what's on both ends of the, think about emotions and logic. So what's on the ends of the teeter-totter? One's,
Angry.
well, emotion, right? Okay. So one's emotion and the other one's what? Logic, right? So if they're on a straight teeter-totter and your emotions go up, what goes down?
Which one is logic?
Your what?
Your logic.
Your logic goes down. So if you go up emotionally, logic goes down, correct? So what does a coping mechanism do?
Makes it so your logic goes.
It buys you time, is really what it does. If your emotion goes up and you're gonna make a decision with your emotion way up and your logic way down, are you gonna make the right decision?
No.
Not a lot of the times. Why? Because emotions are not designed to what?
Decision making.
Make decisions or be in the driver's seat. They're designed to fuel. They're designed to fuel the logical part. Logical part says where we're going. Emotions say, here's how we're getting there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Logic and reasoning is going to think about a lot of things. Dynamics of other situations, dynamics of other people, consequences, possible problems, multiple solutions, multiple problems. That's all logic and reasoning, logic and reasoning. And you can fuel that thought process with emotion. You remember one of the good things we talked about with anger last week when we were outside? What is a good thing that anger can do? It can do what with your decisions? You guys remember? It can drive you. Can you remember that? So if you're angry with where you're at in life, say, I don't like where I'm at in life, I don't like where my situation is, I'm not happy with what's happening with school or relationships or my emotional regulations or whatever it is, I'm upset about that. So that's a normal, natural, healthy anger towards maybe what you're facing, so that can push or fuel or drive now your logic and reasoning. Does that make sense? Yes, Junior.
So basically, if you like get mad or start getting antsy, basically,
Okay, turn around.
your logic is gonna go down,
Right.
and your emotion is gonna overpower you. And when something gets you mad, that level will boost.
Yeah, basically. Right. That's correct, Junior. Very good. So what do you all hear what Junior just said? If you allow your emotions to go up and they stay up, what's the word you said? They will what you?
It will burst the bubble.
Well, before that, you said, yeah, your bubble will pop, like the balloons illustration. But if your emotions are way up and your logic's down, what's in control? Your emotions. And we all know that when we make decisions based solely on our emotions, especially those negative emotions,
There's a 0.5% chance it's
going to work out in your favor? Right, oftentimes, right. So if we make decisions based solely on our emotional functioning, we're probably going to make the wrong decision. That's why give yourself time to allow that teeter-totter to balance back out so your emotions can come down. You can calm down. I'm not feeling the angry emotion anymore. You still might be upset about what happened, but that's different than a rush of emotion of anger, right? You allow that emotion to calm down, and naturally what comes up? Logic, right. And then you can make what kind of decisions? Better, at least, right? At least thought through decisions. Right, okay, very good. Last week, I did a little experiment on you guys. After school, was it Friday or whatever day it was? I gave you guys little pieces of paper, right? What did it have on that paper? But what did it had a picture of a brain, and then what was on the back side of that paper?
Weren't like different things on the back of them.
Okay, who's got their paper with them right now? Like right now, you got yours, Nick? Oh, look at you, Elijah. You got one. Who didn't get one?
I didn't get one. I was in the office.
You didn't get one.
might do
Darn. Darn. Okay.
I lost mine.
I lost mine, but I remember what was on it.
So when I was handing out those little pieces of paper, some of you were like, okay. Okay? Some of you were like, what is this, a magical thing? And you're like, what is this? And you're like, why are you giving this to me? What do these things mean? What's going on? And you really wanted to know. Some of you were like, what's this? And I said, well, you'll find out in life stage. Oh, okay. Did any of you compare your picture to someone else's? Like what was on the back or anything? A few of you did? Nick, you did? Okay. What I was doing is I was simply getting your brains to function. If you had an emotional response from that, that actually could have triggered you a little bit because I didn't tell you what they were for. I didn't tell you what the little things were written on the back. I hope I don't disappoint anyone in here, but those things written on the back mean absolutely nothing.
That's a little bit of what I thought. I thought.
So your question, Stefan, you asked me, is that a plus or a T? It's nothing, man. It's nothing.
Junior, I don't
All I
care
was
about
doing, I was just getting your brain functioning. It's just an experiment. That's all it is. It's just. Yes, sir.
I was like, I thought you wanted us to like bring it to like. I thought you were like testing us to see if we cared enough about it to bring it here. But
Okay.
I was like thinking, what if there's like a puzzle we have to do? But then a little bit of part of me was like, what if he's just playing a mind game?
That's all it is, Isaiah. That's all it is. It's funny that you went that far. You're like, maybe he wants us to bring these. Maybe there's a puzzle. Maybe there's a big prize at the end. You know, something like. I'm sorry to disappoint. Nick, are you upset with me? No? Okay.
Well, I'm happy I lost mine.
Oh, now you're happy you lost yours? See, that spikes my emotions. I'm not come across the statue. No, tease. Who lost theirs immediately? I believe you. Who took theirs from their hand and went right to the garbage with it? How many did that? Tyler? That's a strike for Tyler. Yeah. All I was doing, I was just getting your different parts of your brain to function. So if you had an emotional response to that, maybe at the time or afterwards, or even right now, you might be feeling a little bit of a sense of disappointment because there really wasn't anything. Didn't I give you one of those little pieces of paper with the brain on it? You missed one too? Sorry, Junior. Must have missed you. It was on a Friday, so maybe some of y'all were gone, I think, already. Yeah. It was right after school. You were gone? Sorry, Jackson. All right. You gonna cry now? Okay. It's hot in here. Let me roll through this. So, one of the more complicated things with brain development that you guys do need to know is not only do the parts of the brain develop at different times, but they also communicate with each other. They have little synapses, little electrodes basically that communicate. So when the amygdala is jumping because of emotions, oftentimes it's going to try to communicate to your logic and reasoning, your prefrontal cortex, and then your prefrontal cortex is going to communicate back to your amygdala and say, calm down, bro. That's basically what it's going to say. But if your amygdala, like what it is right now for you guys, is more developed than your prefrontal cortex, it simply is going to sometimes overpower or dominate your entire brain. The issue also is now you enter in pain into your mind. What pain does is it can damage those little communication synapses, those little electrodes that are trying to communicate from one part of your brain to the other, like those little highways. Pain can damage those. So what will happen is, if you've been damaged, if you've had experienced a pain, especially a repeated pain, over and over and over, that highway is going to get what? It's going to get burned up. Now here's what's cool about our human brain. It can heal itself. It can heal itself. Think about a computer like a circuit board. You know, you have all those little electrons that are moving all over, and the computer's communicating over here and over there. And if one of those gets burned out, what do you have to do? You have to replace it, right? You have to actually fix it. Our brains can fix themselves, but you have to be proactive at the fixing, okay? And I'm going to share with you 4 ways you can fix those highways. 4 ways that you can make your brain and the communication function better between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And these are also ways that will allow your brain to grow quicker and or normally. Because pain can actually slow down the development. Okay? Make sense? So I'm gonna give you 4 ways that you can heal those damaged parts, those communication synapses that have been burned up. You ready? Now I'm gonna go from least effective to most effective, okay? So we're gonna start with the least effective. Least effective way to heal your brain is to give it time. Is to give it time. There is truth in the idea that time is like a healing balm, or like it will heal those memories or that damage. Now this is the least effective, okay, remember. But time does have a way of healing our minds and those old memories. Doesn't always work though. I remember I was counseling a lady, it was actually when I was in Alaska. She was 60 plus, I think. And she was telling me this story about this abuse she had gone through. And she was telling me this horrific story of this abuse. And she put her hands into her head and she was crying over it. And she goes, oh, this is so terrible. And she's telling me these terrible things and she's shedding tears. And then she started telling me more about her story. And she tells me about another story of abuse. And she had the same reaction. Oh, it's just terrible. Put her hands up. And I got a little confused with the timeline of the stories. And so I asked, well, when that one incident happened with you, how long ago was that? Oh, it was 40 years ago. And then I asked her, what about the other one? Oh, that was 6 months ago. So she had the same emotional reaction to an incident in her life from 40 years ago compared to 6 months ago. For her, time did not heal. Number 2, environmental improvements. Environmental improvements.
Is this the most?
This is number 2. There's 4 of them. Number 2, get away from situations that are bad for you.
Stop looking at my notes, Caleb.
Get away. No cheating. Get away from situations, from people, from places that are causing you pain. I was just talking to somebody earlier this week, and they said, if I could go back in time and make one change, I could only make one change. If I go back in time, what would that be? You know what he said? Pick different friends. That's what he said. If I could go back in time and just change one thing, I would pick different friends. That's number 2. What's that? Someone I was talking to said that. Number 3, put good in your brain, not bad. Put good in your brain, not bad. Words, people, even music, hobbies, where you go, what you do. If you're constantly cramming bad in your brain is going to what? Get used to it. And we always crave what we're most what? Used to. That's why we'll choose to do things that we know are not good for us. Even though we know there's going to be consequences, we're used to it. That's why the daughter of an alcoholic will marry an alcoholic man. Because she's what? Used to it. It's what she's familiar with. What you feed your brain, eventually your brain will crave. I have a thing on my whiteboard right now. I was thinking of different ways to say this, and I was thinking of how to say it. I wrote it on my whiteboard in my office, and I think I can get it right. If we allow life's monsters to lay under our bed, eventually they will lay with us. Did I get it right? Sure. If we allow life's monsters to lay under our bed, eventually they will lay with us. When we were kids, when I was a kid, you ever seen Gremlins? You guys ever seen the movie Gremlins, that old like 80s with the little reptile guys or whatever? You don't feed them after midnight or whatever. When I was a kid, I was terrified of gremlins. I had a pretty good imagination as a kid. I always pictured a gremlin hand coming up out of my bed and getting me. So of course, what did I do when I turned my light off? Run and start, swipe at the light switch, and make a dive from my bed. I would not walk near my bed because I had this thing in my head where this gremlin hand was gonna come up and get me. When I was a kid, the monsters under my bed were terrifying. As an adult, the monsters under people's beds are actually terrifying. And you can't get away from them by running, flicking a light off, and jumping. And the problem is people will get used to their monsters, their addictions, the relationships they're not supposed to be in, the bad path they're going down. They get used to it, and they invite the monsters from underneath their bed, and they say, come closer to me. I had a kid once, and it was at Pineview, but he's not here anymore. I had a kid once, we were talking about addictions. We're talking about substance abuse, and he was talking about weed specifically. He said, it's one of those things that you don't realize what he said until you think about it. It kind of sticks with you. He said, I'm always going to smoke because weed is the only friend that stuck around. That's what he said. I'm like, good night. He's not wrong. Emotionally, he had been abandoned. He was one of the abandoned. Family, friends, I don't want you. But he said, I'm always going to smoke. Weed is the only friend that stayed with me. His monster under his bed, he invited where? Into his bed. Feed your brain good. Stay away from the substances. Anything bad, get away from it. It's not going to help you. All right, number 4 is the most impactful. You ready? And it's so simple. It's so simple you might not even hear me. You need to want to heal. You need to want to heal. Internal improvement. You can still internally improve if you can't change your situation, your environment. If you're forced to be in an environment that isn't good for you, you still have the ability to have internal change happen if you want it. Now, if you don't want it, it won't happen. If I cut my finger and I put a Band-Aid on it, in a few days, what is that cut gonna do on my finger? It's gonna heal. Well, if I keep it clean. If I keep it clean, put a Band-Aid on it, it's gonna what? It's gonna heal. Do I have to think about it? It'll just do it what? On its own. But our brains don't work that way. Time may feel like it is, but it's the least effective way to heal. We have to will our minds to heal. I don't have to will a cut on my finger. I don't have to be like, come on, heal, come on, heal. I don't have to do that. But when it comes to our brains, we have to be like, okay, I'm hurt in a way, there's pain in a way, I have trauma, I need to want to heal it. Now I need to go out and find what's actually going to help me. That is the most effective way to heal in your mind, is you want it. And therefore, if you want it, you're gonna find what? The ways to actually do it. You're not gonna try to find the ways to actually heal if you don't want it. It doesn't work that way. Because then you're just gonna have a victim mentality. Oh, I'm damaged. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Maybe one day I'll feel better. Just waiting for it to come. It doesn't work that way. You have to want it. All right. Review on those real quick. Lesser to most effective. Time, environmental improvements, feed your brain good, and then internal improvements, or you have to want it. You have to will it.
And then last but not least, logic and reason.
Questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Let's do prizes. You guys get your notes ready?